Hello, in this video we're going to go over how to make the globe at the top of the cosmic colored pixel tree. You can do a smaller 4-row globe or a larger 8-row globe, and in this one we're going to do the 8-row globe. The globe is composed of 2 hemispheres. Here's one of the hemispheres that I've already drilled the holes on, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rows plus 4 at the top here. And the real reason I put the 4 at the top is because each one of these rows has 24 lights in it, and a pixel string has 100 lights, and 4 times 24 is 96.
Hold it down so we can see the top.
So you have 4 left over to make 100, so that's why there's 4 there. Now, I ordered the hemispheres from Edith Aiken Company, and they'll ship it to you in a box like this, and their URL is www.edee.com, and the full URLs and everything for the stuff I'm going to be talking about is on my website, and my website is superstarlights.com. Anyway, when you order it, you want to order 2 of them, and they'll come in a box like this, and you just take it out, and it'll be, it's not going to have any holes in it or anything. And if you look at this, when you order them, let me go over this. When you order it for the 4-row globe, you want to buy 2 of the 12-inch diameter, and the color will be white, and request a 1/2 inch flange around the edge. This is the 1/2 inch flange here. For the 8-row globe, you'll want to buy 2 14-inch diameter white, and again request a 1/2 inch flange. This is the 14-inch because we're going to do an 8-row globe out of it. And if you look at the side here, it's 3/16 of an inch thick, and they mold these out of a piece of acrylic plastic that is that thick. And when they make them, the top ends up being much thinner than that. So the top here is quite thin, and when you drill the holes, you want to be most careful at the top because it's going to be the easiest to crack. As it gets closer to the base here, the plastic gets thinner. Thicker, yes. The plastic gets thicker as you get closer to the base, and you won't have as much trouble with cracking. Now, when you drill the holes, you want to use a 1/2 inch drill bit. Here's my drill, and there's the drill bit here. And here's the package that it came in. It's a drill bit that's made especially for drilling into acrylic plastic and things like that. I bought this bit from ePlastics at eplastics.com. You can also get it from Tap Plastics, and again I have the URLs to these places on my website at superstarlights.com. As I recall, this drill bit cost me $11 plus shipping. It was something like $18 total. But it's well worth it, and it's necessary if you're going to drill into these. This is a piece of paper I used to draw out how I was going to do these, but the only reason I'm showing this is because I have a circle drawn on here, and I have 24 lines marked on the circle so that I can put this globe here, and then I can mark, and you want to mark the four corners heavier because that's going to be where you put the 4 at the top, and then I put a thinner line at all the lines in between. And I might say if you make one of these yourself, you see you're going to want to tape 4 pieces of paper together like this, and so you'll get a 2 per perpendicular lines here, and then you need to find something that'll make a circle, and then after you've done the circle, you're going to bisect that circle to make a mark in here, and then you need to do separate that into 3 marks after that, and then you'll end up with 24 marks all the way around it. But anyway, I'm gonna do these marks all the way around, and then after we do this, the next step will be to find the center point at the top. Okay, we've got the 24 marks around the edge of the globe, and here I've got a measuring tape that is used in sewing. It's flexible so that we can wrap it around the globe here, and it just turns out that it's really close to 23 inches from base to base, and so we mark at, actually do it the other way, at the what I say, 23 inches, so half of that is 11 and a half, right? So we've drawn a line this way with pencil at 11 and a half inches, and then you're going to do the same thing going the other direction and draw a line at 11 and a half inches, and where those 2 lines intersect is where the center point is going to be, and I'll just put a little dot there with our permanent marker to mark the center point. And it's okay. And then, now that we've got our center point, it takes 2 people to do this, really. We're going to put dots at 3/4 inch, 2 3/4 inches, 4 3/4 inches, 6 3/4 inches, and 9 inches. And so I just put the base of the measuring tape at one of those marks and then go straight up to the center, and the first one is going to be at 3/4 inches, and then we just put a dot and then put another dot at 2 3/4 inches, and then at 4 3/4 inches, and 6 3/4 inches, and 9 inches. And I might mention the reason why this first dot is at 3/4 inches, because you're going to say, geesh, if the other one's at 3/4 inches, that only adds up to 1.5 inches. Excuse me, 1.5 inches, and you're going to be too close together. Well, the reason why is because you have the thickness of this flange, plus there's another piece that we're going to put in between the 2 hemispheres, and so these will end up being, actually they end up being 2 1/16 inches apart, but that's close enough to 2 inches that you're not going to notice. So you just keep on doing that for each line and try to go straight up as much as possible, and you go at 3/4, 2 3/4, 4 3/4, 6 3/4, and then we don't need one at 9 inches because that's where the 4 are. You only put the mark at 9 inches at the 4 corners. So you just keep doing that all the way around, and oh, just a minute, I guess you don't have to stop it because I've got one that's, here's one that we've finished marking. You're going to end up with dots all the way around, and I started drilling the holes. As I said, I started at the top because that's the thinnest, and then I start down here, and you just try not to let the center point of the drill wander from the mark you have, and you're going to have to push firm enough to get it to drill, but you don't want to push any harder than you have to. And that's it. I might say on these drills, I talked to Edith Aiken on these. If you want to pick up out of the tripod. ironically, the thing that makes it crack, the thing that'll cause it to crack is the edge of the drill bit. The center is fine. It's just at the end when you're drilling out the big part of the hole, that's when there's potential for cracking. And what happens is the edge of the drill bit, the sharp edge can get caught on the plastic, and that's what causes the chipping. And so what Edith Aiken told me, they said what they do, because they drill a lot of these holes, is they take this drill bit and they take the sharp edge of that and you actually scrape it like on some cement or a stone or something. You actually want to dull down this edge, and I've done that. So that is a tip that you should do to try to make sure it doesn't get chipped. But anyway, let's do another one. You'll see, I don't know, try to get an idea of how fast you can expect to drill through these. And like I said, you have to push a little bit hard at first, and then you let up. You don't push as hard at the end, because it's at the end which is where you have the potential for the chipping. There, and so you just keep doing that, and that's how you drill the holes. When I was showing you how to drill these, I mentioned to start at the top and work your way down, and I might explain that the reason I'm suggesting that is because the place you're going to, if you are going to crack and ruin the whole hemisphere, the place that's going to happen is at the top. And if it was me, I would hate to drill 96 holes and then in these last 4 crack the hemisphere and ruin the whole thing. But I might mention that I never have had that happen. Here's a hole that I chipped, and this is actually the only one I've chipped this way. I must have been pushing hard or crooked or something, but I've never had it crack and ruin the whole thing. And that's why I'm suggesting starting at the top. But if this is the very first time that you're drilling, what you'll want to do is drill a few holes at the bottom, because that's where the plastic is thickest, and you're probably not going to have any problems there. So after you get comfortable drilling some holes down at the bottom where it's thick, you can move up and you can just keep moving up, and as you move up, you'll see that the plastic is thinner and thinner as you go. So, I just wanted to explain. Okay, next, we're going to take our Cosmic Color pixels and glue them into the holes. I've got one here, a hemisphere that I've finished drilling all the holes, and so we're ready to glue the Cosmic Color pixels in. And this is the box that they'll come in. Each box comes with a controller and 2 strings of lights. Each one of these strings has 50 lights in it for a total of 100. And here's one that I've already unwrapped. And you can see this is the end that has this plug. This is what plugs into the controller, and I call this pixel number 1. So this is the first pixel we're going to glue in, and I might note that, you know, the big part of these pixels are 1/2 inch in diameter, and that's why we drilled 1/2 inch holes. And they poke through like that, and I make them so that they stick out just a little bit like that, because you need to have the hot glue stick here. And we're just going to take our hot glue gun and put hot glue around the edge. And I might note that the hot glue really doesn't stick real well to this, but that's okay. You don't want these to be in permanently. You want to be able to remove them if you have to. But before I start gluing them in, I wanted to say that it's important to put these in the same order that I have them in my the visualization that I've made of these, because I use that visualization for the sequences, and so that everybody that makes these pixels trees, so that everybody can share sequences, it's best to make them all the same. And actually you could put them in any order you want if you made a visualization to match what you're doing. But if you want to use my standard visualization file that is in the down, a visualization of this globe is in the standard S3 download in the samples directory. And if you want to use that one, then you've got to do it in the order that I'm going to show you here. I start at the top, and I'm going to call this side that's facing me, I'm going to call this the front. So it's like I'm looking at it at the front. And you start at the front here. This is pixel number 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you get here, you go straight down, and this is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've marked some numbers on this, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, on down around till you get to 28, and then you go down to 29, 30, 31, etc. And here's where 50 ends, and the next string would be 1, 2, and then you go down to 3 here, 4, 5, and you keep on going around. And I might mention, you know, I've made these marks with permanent marker, and if you get a paper towel and daub some alcohol on it, this wipes right off. But actually, at night, I don't think you'd even see these numbers. It wouldn't be a big problem anyway, but if it was me, after going to all this work, I would want to go to the trouble of wiping. If you do write numbers on here like that, I would want to wipe it off before you use it. And also, you know, I was showing hot gluing them one at a time, but here's the bottom. You can go and poke them all through at first, and then hot glue them all later, and then that's going to go faster. So this is the idea. You just see it doesn't goes faster than you might think. You just poke them all in like that, and then you can hot glue them later on. Well, I poked in all the cosmic color pixels through the holes. I haven't hot glued them yet. I thought I would test to make sure the CCPs work. I've hooked the controller to my computer here, pardon the mess of wires, but I've got my sequence I wrote to Rocky Merry Gentleman, and this was made for a 4-row globe, so it's not going to look completely right, but I can tell enough that all the lights are working, and so I have no reason to believe that they're not working right. So now that I'm convinced they all work, I'm going to go hot glue them all in. Okay, we just got done testing to make sure all these lights work, so I'm going to hot glue them in. But before I do that, I might note that you might take a look. This is what it looks like in there. All the wires are curled around, and it works out really good to make it so that you can put this on like a hat, and it looks like one of those things in the old science fiction movies that they used to transfer minds from one person to another. I think if we plug this into another one, I could actually, you know, exchange brains with my wife here, which would be sort of scary. But anyway, scary for her, that is. But enough frivolity here. I've started to hot glue this in. On the top here, I've gone all the way around. These top ones, like I said, the hot glue doesn't, it sticks, but it doesn't stick real well. You can still pull these out if you have to. And one reason I do this is to sort of make it waterproof, even though the Cosmic Color pixels are already weatherproof. It really doesn't matter that much if it got wet inside, but just a matter of principle, I'd rather it not get wet inside. So I'm putting a hot glue around here on these bottom ones. And there tends to be a string that forms, so that's why I just sort of wrap it around like this. But this bottom one I can't really get at the bottom of the pixel, but I just put it around the top, and that's going to keep it waterproof anyway. So you just go around and do this to all of them, and you can see I've put a number on all of them now. That's just for instructional purposes, although it wouldn't be a bad idea to do it on yours to make sure you get them put in right. So that's how we do it. Okay, I've hot glued all the lights in the top here. You might want to get closer. And again, see, I've labeled it, this is the top and that's the front. You start, the first light is at the front, and remember the first light is the one that comes off of the plug that plugs into the controller. So that is light number 1, and we go this way, and I've drawn a little arrow here. Then you go down to 5, and you go left to right as you're looking at it from the front. And when you get to where you started from, you go down and over. You go all the way around, you go down and over again, all the way around, down and over again. And remember that this first string, it's going to end, 50 is going to be here, then 1 and 2 are going to be here, and then you go down like that. Now realize that here's the bottom. I've cut all the holes on the bottom. It is sort of the mirror image of it, because it's going to be like this. The two are going to fit together like this, and so on the bottom you can see I've labeled it. It says front bottom. So number 1 is going to be in the front there, and then you go left to right around like that, and when you get over the edge you go down, and there's number 5. It goes left to right around, and then over around. Here's number 50, 1, 2, go down and over, around, down and over. But when you turn it over and look at it this way, it's going to be sort of the mirror image, because it's going to go, when you get to here, it's going to go right to left as you're looking at the front, and then down, right to left. So just realize that. And if you do glue these in wrong, realize that you can still use the visualization that I have in the S3 download, but you just have to change the coordinates. There's a list of coordinates in the comment field of the fixture. If you're used to dealing with coordinates, you can probably figure it out on your own as to what I've done, but there's just a list of XY coordinate pairs, and the first pair belongs to light 1, the second pair belongs to light 2. And if you change those around, you can still use the visualization and still use my sequences, and they'll all work, because just realize that the sequences are played to the visualization, and anyway, it all works out if you just get the visualization to match how you have these. You can still use those sequences. So now I'm going to glue these all in. Here's the bottom hemisphere. I've got all the lights poked through and hot glued in, and of course this hemisphere is going to be like this, and here's the piece of pipe that's going to stick out of the bottom, and it screws into this thing that is at the top of your mega tree, you know, and all the lights hook onto these things and go down, and this just screws in to that. And this is called, you can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's, and they call it 1 3/4 inch conduit, but it's really heavy, and the 1 3/4 inch is the inside diameter. The outside diameter is close to 2 inches, so just realize that. And it's going to poke out of the middle of the bottom here. Can you get up close? That's our center point that we marked, and I just went and I drew some little dots that are 1 inch and 1/8. I just wanted something that was a little bit more than 1 inch, because that way when I put this on top of it, I can see where to put it so that it's in the center. I just make it so that those marks are a little bit outside of it, and then you can take your permanent marker and draw a circle. And when we actually cut the hole, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than that circle, because when we make this may not be exactly perfectly perpendicular, and it's best to have a little bit of a room to work with there. And there is no drill bit. Anyway, I don't have a drill bit anywhere near that big, and I don't even know if they make one that would cut through acrylic plastic. So what I do is I just take my regular soldering gun, and I know they make some tips on this that are made to cut through plastic, but I don't have one, so I'm just going to use the regular soldering tip, and you just poke it through there, and it melts through. It'll go faster once this heats up, and you just do that repeatedly as you go around. You might say, you can see there's a hole over here that's smaller, and the reason for this hole is for the wires to come out of the bottom, and it has to be big enough for the plug from the controller to come through. So I think I made it 1 inch and 3/8 inch in diameter. And when you're done with this, there can be some sharp edges in the plastic that I didn't want to have the risk of those sharp edges cutting into the wires that are coming out of this hole. So after I was done, I just took some hot glue. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's some hot glue around that edge. That's just to make it so it's not sharp. But this one doesn't matter, because all that's going to come, there's just going to be the pipe coming out of the bottom. It doesn't really matter if it's sharp or not. So, okay, now we're going to put these right angle things on this piece of conduit. I might say I cut this to be 12 inches, and the idea is for it to stick out of the bottom of the hemisphere by 4 inches, and that works out to be a good length. You can see I already have these bolted on. I have some 1/4 inch bolts that go through here. So I drilled 1/4 inch holes here and here, and it just goes through the middle like that. And now, but I can't do that on the others, because if I went through, the bolt would run into that one, And I have this tap and die set that I bought at Home Depot for about $40, I think. And I'm just going to drill some holes here and here and then tap some threads so that I can just put this little short screw in there. And if you don't have a tap and die set, then what you could do is either buy some different size brackets or drill some new holes. You just need some holes through here that are in a different place so that they don't run into these bolts, and then you can just go across and bolt it in. I was going to show you when you do drill the holes, it's a good idea to put a little drop of oil on where you're going to drill, and drill for a little bit and then put some more oil in there. It helps reduce the friction and the drill bit won't heat up so much, and your drill bits will last a lot longer. And actually, before I do this, I'm going to take these bolts out because I have to take them out, because when I tap the threads, it's going to run into these things anyway. But you get the idea. I'm going to drill these holes, tap the threads, and put the angle brackets. Okay, I got my angle brackets, all 4 of them on here. You can see one of them, the bolt goes all the way through, and the other I tapped some threads, and the bolts just go part way through there. And I got some 3/4 inch bolts. You can see for the short ones, they're plenty long. I could have got some 1/2 inch and would have been fine. And the idea is to get these right angle things so they're all form a flat surface. And it's pretty close, but it's always a little bit off. And so what I do is I found this stuff called Temflex. It says rubber splicing tape. I think it cost like I don't know, it might cost $5. I can't remember, but it was under $5 for this roll. And when you take it out of the package, it looks like that, and you cut off lengths of it, and it's, just this rubber stuff. And I'm going to put those on top of there and cut some little holes, and it makes a softer surface for this, because we're going to put a piece of plexiglass on top of this. And I want a soft surface to mate between these angle brackets and the piece of plastic. Oh, here's a piece of acrylic plastic that I got at Home Depot. This costs $20, and I put the hemisphere on top of this and drew this circle, and I did a little test cut here, and it cut great. And then I started cutting the circle, and there's a weird phenomenon that happens here. If you look, you see here, at first it cuts fine, but it doesn't take long for the blade to heat up, and it melts through the plastic and it fuses again. So after you're done cutting, it's not cut. And so what I do is I put some oil on there to reduce the friction, and hopefully it won't heat up as much. I've done this before. My experience is it still tends to do the same thing, but we'll give it a try here. Okay, that was fine, and I might say without the oil you can cut through it 2 or 3 times and it'll melt every time. I've tried it. You really want to use the oil to keep the heat down, or else you'll melt through instead of cutting, you'll melt through it. Okay,
Okay, so I just want to show that. Be sure to use the oil, or else you'll have a terrible time
Okay,
cutting
here's
this.
the circle that I cut out. It's a little bit hard to see because it's clear, but I've marked the middle and put my little lines there. So because this goes on top of this thing here, and eventually, I just put 4 bolts through this. Okay, you don't want to put these bolts through. See, because there's 2 holes here and here. I only use the outer hole because the controller is going to sit on top here, and if you put, this makes it so that it's not sitting on top of some bolts that are sticking through. And I've marked a circle right here because both controllers are going to sit on top here. One of them, these are going to go through and hook to the lights of the lower half, and then the other controller will sit on top here and hook to the lights to the upper half, and then this power cord can just come around and go down through that same hole. Okay, I got this hole cut, and I have the center marked there so that I can put this conduit in the right place, and then I position these rubber things underneath there. The other 3 are already positioned, and then I've already drilled 1 hole, but the key thing is while you're drilling you want to push down on this, because the rubber stuff will get caught in the drill and start wrapping around the drill unless you're pushing down on it to stop it from doing that. Okay, I've drilled 2 of the holes here, and I'm going to put these 1/4-inch bolts just partially into it just to hold it in place. Otherwise, when you're drilling, you might move it and then the 4 holes won't be lined up. And let's see, as I said, you want to push down on this because as you first start drilling, the rubber will get wrapped around the drill. Otherwise, don't push too hard because you don't want to crack the acrylic. So I'll do this last one here. And that's it. Okay, I've got the 2 hemispheres temporarily clamped together. You can see the clear round thing is in the middle. I've used these C-clamps to temporarily clamp it together, and this goes a lot easier if you have 2 people doing this. It's hard to put those clamps on there all by yourself. And next, what I'm going to do is drill some little holes through this flange. I'm going to use these little screws here. I'll drill a hole in 4 places around the flange and put these little bolts through there with a nut on the end to hold these 2 things together. And of course, when you set these 2 together, this is where it helps. I had this marked up here. It says top front, and this is that number 1 light. Well, down at the bottom, if you look, it says bottom front, and you can't see it, but this light here is number 1 also. So you want those lined up. So now I'm going to drill my 4 holes and bolt these together. Okay, I've got my 4 screws in there. And so now I can take the C-clamps off, and I'm basically done, though I don't have the controllers inside right now. You can see about 4 inches of the pipe sticks out at the bottom. I just need to take this apart and put the 2 controllers in there and plug these into the strings. And I like to mark on the end here. I don't know if you can see it. There, see, I have 03 and 04 so that I know which string is which. On mine, I have these controllers are going to be unit IDs 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I might note that on these Cosmic Color Pixel controllers. You want to configure them, they call it dual normal. And if you configure them as dual normal, then each string will have its own unit ID. So one controller will be 1 and 2, and like I said, this controller is 3 and 4. And so you just make sure you plug that into the right light string, and you set that on top of the clear thing inside, and put the power cord down through that hole in the middle, and then it comes out the bottom on that hole. And it is a little bit tricky when you screw this in to the top of the megatree. You want to get a good stable 10-foot ladder, and you have to grab this and then carefully screw it in to this thing that'll be at the top. One other thing I wanted to show is one problem you have is if you just set this globe on a flat hard surface, the little pixels that poke through, the ones on the bottom will get pushed in because they're not in that strong. And so I store it in something like this. I just have a box full of peanuts, foam peanuts, that I put it on, and then it doesn't damage, and then the little lights in the bottom don't get pushed in. I guess if you're going to store it year round, you could put it in a box a little bit bigger than this, and you don't need it that full of peanuts, but fill it with enough peanuts that it gives something soft to rest on, and so that's how I would suggest. Okay, here I've got the two hemispheres all wired together, but they're not assembled yet. And note that I have the that 12-inch piece of conduit screwed into the little hook assembly thingy so that it stands up a little bit easier. But be aware, it's still precarious. This can tip over easily, so be careful that doesn't happen. I have the controllers. Before I did all this, I hooked the controllers to the computer one at a time and configured them. You can configure them to dual normal. This top controller I configured to be unit ID 0D, and it automatically assigns the first string to 0D and the next one to 0E. And then I configured this controller to be 0F, and so it assigns the first string to 0F and the second string to 10. These are all hex numbers. The other controllers, the first controllers will be hooked to the strings in the tree, and these are the last controllers, so they end up being the strings, the unit IDs on the strings in the tree are 01 through 0C, and these are 0D through 0F. And 0D is hooked to the top row of lights, the top group of lights in the globe. 0E is the next group, 0F is the next group, and 10 is the bottom group in the globe. And before I hook it all together, I'm going to run a little test sequence here that I wrote that will just start with the top row and go down. Here, I'll run it. There, see it did that row. It's doing one row at a time, and then it goes to that one, that one, that one, and that one. I know they were going in different directions, but that's because this one is upside down. That was proper, so I know it's all hooked up right. So now I'm going to assemble them all together. And with the first, I was tempted to try to bolt these down, but you really don't have to. It doesn't hurt anything to just let these controllers sit on top. I don't see any reason to have to bolt them down, but if you wanted to, you could put some screws and bolt these down here. So now I'm going to put it all together. Okay, I've got the globe all put together, and I'm running the test sequence. It's first going to do some white stuff, and I've got some text that comes, and it sort of overwhelms the camera. It looks better in real life, but you'll see it says 8 row globe test. Coolness.